another question. Do you think that this republic will survive the damage of the last 30 years, or will it become another failed empire?
Well, the empire's failed. I mean, forget it, that it might be a success ever. It's over. As a nice little mercantile nation, which is what we were for a long, long time, and we made things, from blue jeans to Coca-Cola, to movie land, and the world wanted them. I mean, we made a product. The product was enjoyed by everybody. It wasn't meant to be, charismatic from heaven. It was just junk very often, but it was our junk. The world liked it. And then we had the troops follow the junk. And suddenly the Japanese were, I knew the end was near, and I got the best scotch that I've had in many years in Tokyo. If they can do that, they've got the world. Forget Corregidor. No, the empire's over with, and I don't see it come. If ever there was a country that was ill-suited to be imperial, the Brits have a better educational system for everybody, not just the aristos. And it means that they always have second, third, fourth sons, and then they turn to daughters. And like Mrs. Thatcher, they were pretty good at carrying on the imperial line. And they were used to it. And they were trained for it. We have a ruling class, they speak no languages and hardly English. And I'm talking about the average English that the Caucasians speak on the talk shows. To hear Lou Dobbs get all tangled up in a simple sentence is a joy. It's a joy. He doesn't know where he's going with it. They've all started to mix up responsible and respectable. You know, I want more respectable audiences, said the senator from Arizona. I think he meant responsible. The word's too difficult for him. They're too insipid. And he wonders if anybody would know what it meant. Oh, we've done a great job in education.
You've never served in government, actually, outside of the Army.
Well, that's as inside as you can ever get.
But if you were responsible for American foreign policy, what do you, I'm asking, I'll read the question, what do you feel should be the role of the United Nations, and what should be the role of the United States in respect to the United Nations?
Well, I was a great friend in the last years of her life of Eleanor Roosevelt, who was my neighbor at Hyde Park. I lived 10 miles from that. And when I ran for Congress in 1960, Mrs. Roosevelt was out there campaigning for me. And I can remember the fight she put up after the president died. For us, there's only one president. These idiots we don't regard as presidents. There's Mr. Roosevelt and the others. And Eleanor and Franklin didn't want to replay World War I, which they regarded World War II as just that. So after the mess of World War I, suddenly there we were in World War II, which was even worse for us. And worse, we got nothing out of it, you know. The Roosevelts weren't shy. They didn't mind our stealing islands and continents and the world. Roosevelts couldn't govern it. I don't think they thought anybody else was worthy of doing it. You know. We're sorry to have taken Iceland today. It was a wonderful piece of ice. And I want to drink to the native population that we have liberated, and may they long enjoy the stars and bars of our flag. He was wonderful. One of the funny stories he liked to tell, you know, he was in a wheelchair all his life. And thank you, World War II, I earned my wheelchair. And he had just become president. And he was very bad with mechanics. He didn't know, and I don't know how either, how you undo the lock. I mean, once you start on that, you may well give up the rest of your profession. You become a locksmith. So there was the president in the White House, and his secretaries are off, the Secret Service is going wherever they go when there's an assassination being planned. And so there he is, fiddling with the dials, and nothing's working. And he was claustrophobic, as you would be too if you were stuck in one of those chairs. And he's worrying about getting this thing to move from the Oval Office into the cabinet room, which is next door. Well, he's fiddling with it, and then he finally yells for a guard to come, an usher, as they call it at the White House. And an usher arrives and says, "Oh, Mr. President, Mr. President," he'd only been president about a week. "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, I can't undo the lock here." They said, "Oh, we'll send for an..." He said, "I don't want anybody who works at the White House to do this. Just forget it." He said, "Get me somebody from the Navy Department," which was next door in the executive mansion. He had been Secretary of the Navy, and he had great faith in the Navy.
They used to provide the stewards in the Navy.
Well, if they wanted to work at slave wages, yes, they did. So they get this kid from the Navy Department who's shaking all over because the president, his head was this big. You felt that he was about to have dinner when he said, "Well, it's nice to meet you, my boy, and just come over here." And he said, "Oh my God, I'm going to be ate alive." And so, the kid came over to get his chair functioning to take him into the cabinet room. Well, it took quite a time. Finally, the boy was so terrified, he was pushing the chair, and suddenly the red shoes took over. The sailor couldn't stop, and he's pushing and pushing, and the chair is going faster and faster. The president's getting more and more alarmed. Where will it all end? And the kid sees an open door up ahead in what looks like a quiet, safe place. And he pushes him in there. It's a closet in which they kept, carbon paper. That's what we lived on in those days. And there was carbon paper and other nice things. And they end up in that. And the president by then was green with terror. And finally the Secret Service remember their duties, and they come on duty, look after, see if the president's all right. He's all right, and he said, "Well, how are you, Mr. President?" He said, "Well, I've had quite a ride." And, well, what happened? He said, "Oh, don't blame the young man, it's not his fault. He's not a professional pusher of chairs." Actually, he said, "like all presidents, I have assassination in mind. And I thought to myself, could this be the day?" But then I realized that this was a harmless Navy boy. I had been Assistant Secretary of the Navy. I had a rapport with these kids. I felt better about it. And I knew that I would be all right. But then when I looked about me in that closet, I realized I was not going to be killed. I'd be the first president to be filed. Keep your ears open. Presidents sometimes have funny stories.